Well, doing the last couple passes of corn here. This is a tiny little, probably third of an acre at the most, maybe half an acre, probably close to a half-acre plot. The last probably 2 years, this has been pretty much solid pumpkins that we grow and sell at the road. Prior to that, I've had some soybeans and brassicas out here, a little bit of corn 1 year. We've probably been planting this for maybe close to 5 or 6 years now. We're rotating our pumpkins around because they end up rotting if you plant too many years in the same spot. Powdery mildew gets really bad. So this is going to be probably primarily food plot for the next 2 or 3 years. So I got pretty much this half into corn. Then I'm going to have one pass with a disc, like a strip of soybeans here, and then a strip of buckwheat, which will be later will be no-till brassicas. And then right on the left side of this disc furrow, this will all be clover and alfalfa. I'm going to probably put solid alfalfa on one of these ends and then solid clover on the rest of it, because I know the alfalfa, once you get an alfalfa stand established, you can't really reseed more seed into it because the plants prohibit growth of new seeds from germinating, supposedly. With a clover, you can just keep seeding in. So I might do probably this half, because, well, whatever half I do is going to be probably primarily alfalfa, and the other half will be primarily clover. All right, so I just got the clover seeded. All those yellowish ones are the red clover, and those gray seeds are the white clover. Put it in real thick. You can't really overseed clover. The thicker the better. Like I said, I'm kind of worried about how well this is going to turn out, being, you know, already early June here. Missed a lot of good rains. This stuff might end up getting droughted out, being so small, trying to get established. Basically right about in the center here. Right here's where I stopped. Right where this furrow is. Going this way is all going to be alfalfa. It's just, I'm probably going to do a light mix of clover and then heavy alfalfa. This is no alfalfa this way. All right, so here's a look. You saw I just drove through twice. Now I got the whole thing seeded. This is seeded onto the loose ground and then packed. You can still see a couple seeds, which is good, because I am probably putting a couple of them too deep doing it this way. You can see all the seed right there. And then after the tractor goes over, most of it's covered up, but there still is some on top. And then here it is. Well, this is the area I packed before I seeded. If we were gonna get more rain, I probably would pack the whole thing, seed it, and then pack, but it doesn't look like there's a ton of rain coming, so it'd probably be better to get these seeds a little bit deeper. I'm just hoping this turns out, because might end up having to replant all this next year earlier, like late April, early May, to get this clover and alfalfa to get a really good start. Well, here's the first look at the wetter plot. My clover is right over there. This is going to be primarily, middle section is going to be corn, up to right here. And going this way is pumpkins. This is the last 2 years we've had all this into pumpkins, pretty much, other than that far end is where I had my NutriCrave last year. Kind of see the corn stubble down there. Last year was our first year of pumpkins here, so that's why we're doing one more year. I'd like to do 2 years max in the same spot, because like I said, the powdery mildew gets so bad. Even with treated rot-resistant seeds, they still tend to rot, especially in this heavier, kind of somewhat clay ground. Holds a lot of moisture anyways. I don't want to do a ton of soybeans here because, like I said, this is big ag country. There's not crazy deer numbers around here, and 1 year we had like practically this whole field full of soybeans. And with the corn, it's at least manageable. You can hand pick it to get it out of the field. If there's half of it left or whatever, the soybeans, you can't do anything but mow them up and disc them up, and then you're fighting like millions of seeds that are coming up. The corn, you can at least pick it off the stalk and get most of it out of the field before you brush hog it if there's corn left over. Obviously the brassicas aren't going to be an issue, so that's why this other side over here I might do a lot of brassicas over there at Clover, along the weeds over there. It's pretty amazing that on probably a half-acre area I'm able to pretty much confidently say this is going to turn out well with just basically a little bit of brassica, a little bit of corn, and a little bit of soybeans. And this is going to probably last these deer, just this plot alone, even if I didn't have the other plot, just this plot alone would be here probably all the way throughout most of the winter, to be honest with you. It is pretty easy to grow food plots in a low deer density area like this and have successful plots to last the whole season without having to plant like 10 acres. We just about got this worked up. I didn't put any clover over there. This side is bigger than we need it. We don't need this whole area into corn, soybeans, or brassicas for winter because there's not a ton of deer here, like I said. So I already got my clover on the far end. I'm gonna continue and put a little bit more clover down there, and then clover all on this side. And then up here is going to be, well, some sweet corn for this year, and then basically from about the middle over, from about here over, half of it will be soybeans on that end, and the other half will be brassica or buckwheat, and then eventually no-till brassica, and a little sweet corn patch up here. Well, here's the final spot at this property here. This is just a tiny little quarter-acre probably. It's brand new ground. It was all basically just looked like that. Sod and goldenrod and a bunch of vines. It's kind of just a natural little opening here for many years. The willows and trees are slowly creeping in here. My plan was to just plant this 1 year into something to we plowed up, and you know, plowing really helps kill this sod fast. I mean, you could spray and disc. Next year I plan on just spraying and disking up. This is the only year we're going to have a food plot here because it's just so far in here. You can't, I mean, to slip into one of these trees right here, anything bedded along that pond back there by them willows or underneath that giant silver maple over there, they're going to see you. And this property needs some more screening. It's just super hard to access throughout this property. So my plan was to put a big horseshoe shape of like miscanthus all the way along the back side there, and then maybe even another strip in the middle or something. You can see I left these two little diversity pockets. I planted 2 pine trees in each one, and only one survived on each spot. They're not doing that good. This is like a real heavy clay, like just a wet clay, so I don't think them pines are going to do the best there, so I might just plant some cedars there or something. My plan was to just convert this all to screening, maybe some switchgrass in the middle, like I said, or I might end up putting the miscanthus closer to this side. I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do. And I might even come in here and throw in a whole bunch of like walnuts, acorns, silver maple seed, some ash seed, just random tree seed with the switchgrass. Basically, I just want this to turn into all habitat, and I'll leave like a nice little clover edge. Like the first 5 yards is clover right along the driving trail here. So this is, I know this will be an unhunted spot, so these deer could just come out and feed right here real easily. Our higher ground, better food plot's just right over there, and that wet plot behind the house is over that way. This is really close to bedding, so I'm gonna throw these beans in real thick. Like I said, it don't really matter if we don't really get the best crop here, so we got way more food than we already need on the property. I think we're gonna have corn and soybeans left over. this side I'm gonna put into buckwheat, so basically it'll be no-till brassicas later on this side, and beans on that back half. That real dark stuff there was plugging up the disc like crazy. This is a real heavy dark clay, unlike at the family farm, which is like a peat ground, like a loam. It doesn't plug up the disc at all. This is some heavy sticky clay right here. And I should mention, there was, look at this stuff. Anyways, man, these mosquitoes are terrible. But back half here, soybeans, the front half buckwheat, later brassicas. You'll see this in a later update. Well, here's a quick update. This is that brand new spot that was all sprayed off sod that we plowed under this year. So on a first year plot like this, you're left with very little, if hardly any, weeds for usually the first year, and even the second year is usually pretty good. But by year 3 of doing this, working the ground, you start getting more and more weeds. But like I said, this is all going back into miscanthus, maybe a little bit of switch. I'll throw in some random tree seed like silver maple seed, some ash seed, maybe a couple walnuts or acorns, and then I'll have clover along the edge next year. So this is the only year we're gonna have a food plot here, just simply because it's just way too close to where these deer bed. I mean, I'm trying to get screening here so I could maybe climb up one of those trees behind the tractor. To try and get into one of these trees, you're spooking all the deer out of here. I mean, this is 20-acre property and about a 5-acre bedding area, so it's pretty easy to spook them out of here. Anyways, buckwheat's all coming up good, but you can see we had some standing water out here. We're supposed to get hit with another minimum 1.5 inches tomorrow, maybe more. So this buckwheat's getting kind of stressed, and it doesn't like wet areas, but it looks like it's going to survive if we don't get a ton more rain. Soybeans are coming up. I'm not seeing hardly any deer browse on them, which is good. I'll probably, I'll get in here and spray these eventually, but not yet, because literally there's nothing coming up other than some of this sedge grass and not really many weeds. But I was out here probably a 1.5 weeks ago. Man, I don't know if those can't be turkey tracks. I've never seen a turkey on this property, but it might be. Interesting. Like a hen. I was out here like a 1.5 weeks ago or so, when this was all completely saturated. There was standing water in this corner here, and definitely more beans have popped up since then. So maybe disking them in, put them in a little bit too deep, and they're still, like, they weren't all up right away. But now I'd say there's definitely more beans out here now than what there was last time I was out here. So anyways, looking good. I'll take you over to that other area where we got some corn just on the other side over here. All right, so here's what this side looks like. This buckwheat's looking fantastic. This is a lot drier plot, although this edge had a bunch of standing water in here. Looks like my clover survived, at least this spot, but there's still some water down here. I would assume that it probably killed off some of my seed here. And this is the side I put in alfalfa, so this alfalfa is definitely gone right here. It does not like any standing water. This flag right here, you can see how that side's thicker. That's all red and white clover. This side, I think I had a little bit of clover mixed in, but it was probably 75% alfalfa. You can clearly see the cutoff. That's seeded heavier, but there's plenty of seed on this side too. But probably 3/4 of this is alfalfa, and you can see right here immediately some water hemp, some other weeds. We've been working this ground for probably close to 4 or 5 years now, so there's definitely more grasses in here. But in reality, it doesn't look bad at all for being planted and worked up a month ago. There really ain't that many weeds coming up. And then this soybean section kind of was a failure. I don't know why they didn't come up that good or what. I think I used up, it had to have been all the same seed, but I think one of the bags was like a half a bag that I grabbed at home. It might have been a bag that was in the basement for 2 or 3 years, and I didn't label any of that stuff, so it might have been old seed, or I don't know what. There's only a couple sporadic ones out here. This should have been soybeans all the way up to this row. I had and the 85-day corn didn't come up for crap either. Right here's a couple of them. Boom, boom. And then the 100-day corn starts. That 85-day corn was just shelled out corn I had saved. That was only 1 year old and it didn't really come up. Very low germination. But yeah, there should be soybeans like all the way up to here. You can clearly see this buckwheat's bigger when you give it more room to grow. So I probably got the buckwheat overseeded, but I wanted a solid stand of buckwheat, no weeds coming in, and that's what I got. It gets ahead of the weeds really fast, so it should shade out the ground completely. And then when I want to put in my brassica, it'll be really easy to kill. The buckwheat's super easy to kill with the glide. You don't have to spray. You don't have to worry about any weeds coming back if there's no weeds to start in there. So yeah, I don't know. There should be soybeans all the way up to like right where I'm standing right here, and then soybeans up to that corn. But yeah, that is interesting. The buckwheat's definitely bigger and healthier looking where it's not as thick, but that's true for anything. I'm not going to do anything with this spot. I'll just spray it when I spray the corn here, and I'll just throw in brassica seed on the bare dirt here eventually. This is where the furrow is too, so you can see there had to have been some standing water here. It's kind of crusty and kind of wet looking yet. It's a little bit lower here. Anyways, 100-day field corn starts here. It's pretty patchy in some areas. I think I should have got out here right away when it was coming up and broadcasted some shelled corn. I think the cranes or crows or some sort of birds pulled out some of this seed, because I know where I planted this seed, some in other areas, it was like a perfect row like that. But these gaps in this row are from birds, without a doubt. And I wasn't even out here, like I said, so that's just my gut hunch. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of 100-day field corn. And then I got the 100-day NutriCrave. This stuff's even thicker because, like I said in all my videos this year, it's a little bit smaller seed, runs through the planter a little bit thicker, but not too thick. And it could have been a little bit from washout too. You can see where, right where this washout line is, there's no seed right there in pretty much all these rows. So it could be a combination of washout, maybe a little bit of crane damage, because I've had crane damage here in the past. But in reality, it's not going to matter. It's going to be a beautiful crop of corn. This spot of corn looks a lot better than the next spot I'll take you to later. I got to get over there and disc some of my pumpkins and before the rain comes tomorrow. But a little bit tighter row right here. I put in a couple pumpkin plants on the edge here. That's what these are. I got to weed around these by hand. I put them next to the NutriCrave so I wouldn't accidentally spray them. All right, so here's the pumpkins, just out here disking the rows before we get slammed with some more rain tomorrow. So here we got buckwheat on the edge, and then here's the corn back here. You can see how patchy this stuff is. I got 4 rows as like headland rows right here. Just super patchy. Don't know exactly what happened. Looks like we're lacking some phosphorus. That's what this purpling is, but it should be fine. In this plot, I got 6 rows of NutriCrave starting on this side. So this is all NutriCrave up to here. And then the 100-day field corn starts. Then I got 2 rows of the 85 stuff that didn't come up. Coyote track right here. But yeah, there's some patches in here with nothing, so there had to have been some cranes or birds that pulled them out, because this end up back here is really bad. And even right here, there's big gaps. I mean, it's almost a total loss on this side. It wasn't due to flooding, because this is the furrow, so that area obviously was wetter than what it needed to be, but this is higher ground here. This had to have gotten pulled out by birds. There's like literally nothing here. That end actually looks okay, but the other corn turned out a lot better out there. But we'll get something here for the deer. Like I said, there's not a ton of deer here anyway, so we'll probably end up having food left over. Just mowed these established clover plots tonight. First time we mowed them this year, July 1st. We're getting plenty of rain in the next week for this stuff to bounce back, this clover. Here's the clover I mowed tonight too, and then here's the new clover. You can see how wet this area is. This is just tons of mosquitoes. I don't know if you can see them. This whole place is just infested with mosquitoes. But clover's all coming in really thick. This area I put all clover except one little spot out there's a little bit of higher ground. I put a little bit of alfalfa as a test. But for some reason, these beans right here, we got buckwheat right there and then sweet corn on the end. I'm pretty sure this was the same beans. I seeded this all. Actually, no, I can't remember if I planted. No, this was planted probably a couple days after this side. So whatever bag I used to plant that, it must have been an old bag. And that's the same day I planted the ones out there in the other dry plot. But this was a different seed right here, and this stuff's coming up a lot better. This is the same seed as the first spot I showed you in the new ground, first year plot. I mean, these beans are actually going to turn into something. We actually got a lot of them in here where we should get canopy closure eventually. I mean, they still are quite a bit behind, but we're going to get some pods in here, and you can see there's plenty of beans in here. So this side is going to completely get sprayed. There should be no brassicas coming up. This was all pumpkins here last year. But yeah, there's a good amount of beans in here. Whereas this side, like I said, was a different bag. I planted it a couple days earlier. It had to have been an old bag, or maybe I left it in my truck and it just nuked all the seed and kind of killed the germination. But there is a couple over here, so whatever. Like I said, we got more food than we need here for these deer, I think. Here's a quick look at this buckwheat. Kind of same thing, kind of getting yellowish looking, because this is all really wet ground here. The sweet corn didn't really come up the greatest either. I think we had some pulled out too, because these rows are pretty thin, but most of it looks pretty good. But yeah, we'll probably have one more update in this video. Right here where these white flags are, like a little rectangle, this is where the alfalfa was seeded. From that flag to that flag, out to the end is alfalfa. And this was pretty much 100% alfalfa, I think. So this is all alfalfa coming up right here. Whereas the rest of this whole side, going all the way down and around, is all red and white clover 50-50. All right, so out here for the final update of all these plots. Things are looking decent, I would say. Could be better, could be worse. So here's that really thin stand of beans. I think I had like some 3-year-old seed that I used up. I didn't realize it was that old, but I think it was some pretty old seed. That's why we didn't get the greatest germination. I mean, there is beans in here, but I do got brassicas coming in all this too. Same thing, they're just really far behind. It looks like they just came up. I seeded these things like, honest to God, like 3 weeks ago. I don't know why they're so small. I put quite a bit of fertilizer on this whole plot this spring. These beans being really, really thin like this. I have been hand pulling some of these water hemp plants in here. these beans being so thin like this are really branching out and really putting on a lot of pods. But too bad it wasn't a nice thick plot. This plot over here, I planted about a week after I did this side one weekend. Plowed it all up, planted it all practically. And the next weekend we did this side. This was a little bit different seed. This was not as old and this is all just harvested bean seed. This ain't true bean seed that you would buy. This is just harvested beans from a local farmer. You can see just putting on tons of pods. Even these, I would say, are relatively on the thin side. There's still quite a bit of gaps in here. This is the most browse I've seen on these beans all summer. So it seems like some of these deer have definitely started using this kind of regularly, because there is definitely more browse than there was no browse in any of these beans when they were first coming up, which was really nice. But now they're definitely getting in here, snapping off a couple plants, walking around in here, and it looks like it's actually getting hit pretty hard. Throughout the whole plot, there's quite a bit of browse. I would imagine the beans out there further, closer to where they bed, are probably getting hit worse. I'll head out there in a second. We got a little sweet corn right here, and then another little patch of brassica that's looking so-so right now. Definitely more weeds in this spot. This right here is where the buckwheat was like the tallest, and the area that it crushed down really nice too. Still quite small, but that's okay. These brassicas can grow quite a bit in the second month. They've been only in the ground for, probably 3 weeks, not quite a month. So the second month is when they really take off. And I'm really liking the spacing. Like, it's not too thick. There's plenty of room in here for these plants to grow. All right, so here's some of that first year clover that I put in really, really thick. There's actually some brassicas coming up. I had a little strip of brassicas here last year. Definitely a lot of weeds coming in too. I did throw in some scattered soybeans in here too. There's actually quite a few pods growing on here, and yeah, there's actually quite a bit of deer browse right here. I would assume they're eating on some of this clover too, but there's just so much of it, I can't really see a whole lot of browse. I don't know why it's got like this whitish look on a lot of these leaves too. I don't know what that means, but and then there is some smaller, thinner patches in here too. The weeds really aren't that bad. There's really just a couple velvets. Oh, I should mention I did spray out all the grasses with clethodim probably like 3 weeks ago or so. There was definitely some grass pressure coming in. See, like, it didn't kill the swamp grass. This is like yellow nutsedge. This is some really strong stuff. Right here's some more of it, but there was some foxtail and crabgrass in here. This side didn't have a whole lot, but the other plot further out there in the drier area had quite a bit of grass coming in. I can't even see. There was definitely some grass in this area too. It just has died down and disappeared already. Yeah, I don't know why it's so white like this. That's got to mean something. But just a beautiful thick stand. I mean, it's just going to be even thicker next year too when it comes back real fast in the spring. I'd say this is about as good as you can get for year one. And then right where these flags start right here, there's a little basically rectangle from here to the sweet corn that I put basically just straight alfalfa. And I had a little, maybe like 25% clover. See, here's the alfalfa right here. And then on that drier plot out there where I'll take you to next, I had about half and half, one side clover, one side alfalfa. All right, here's the dry plot. This is a much drier site and a lot better soil, so you can see the corn is definitely a lot nicer over here. But look at this. They were just starting on this corn last time I was out here a couple weeks ago, munching on it. This is all the 100-day field corn. It's just completely destroyed practically. I mean, they got ears on it, but I don't know what kind of pollination we're gonna get on all these rows And then the first good row here is the NutriCrave. I don't know why the deer just seem to avoid it. This stuff must just taste better right now. Sweeter with the silks, and eating on all the leaves must be sweeter. I have no idea. But pretty much all this NutriCrave is untouched. So, I mean, if you want to grow a good... I mean, the NutriCrave is supposed to be more attractive when it dries down. We'll see how that goes. But I really like how the deer just completely avoid it during the growing season. If you got like a small plot that you want to get corn in, and you got issues like this with field corn, I would definitely try the NutriCrave, because man, all the areas, it's not just this property, it's multiple other areas I have it planted, the deer just do not touch it. And usually the raccoons stay out of it too. Usually when I have it side by side, there's always more coon damage in the field corn and less in the NutriCrave. And I mean, he's got some pretty good ears on him. There's even a second ear on some of these in here. So this is what's gonna get these deer through the winter. All this NutriCrave right here. I only got like 6 rows of it, about 75 yards long. And I do have Brassicas scattered throughout in these openings. So I'm gonna hit all these Brassicas with urea when I'm done taking this video. I mean, the ears did form, so maybe they got... Let me just open one of these up. Yeah, that's what I figured. Pretty much no pollination. Like, there's only a couple in here that are gonna develop. That's probably what all these look like. Yep, same thing. I mean, less than 10% of those kernels are actually gonna turn into something. If I would have got out here, if I would have came out here like a week and a half ago, I could have collected some NutriCrave pollen or a little bit of pollen from some of these ones and tried to hand pollinate. Like some of these I could still technically try, because when the silks are, even these are starting to dry up. When the silks turn brown like this and dry up, the pollination phase has already taken place. You got to do it when the silks are like this. You see how this NutriCrave is just dropping a ton of pollen? This stuff is like about a week and a half behind the field corn, and this silk is like really tender and white, and just it's pollinating right now, where this stuff already pollinated. So I don't think I'm gonna get like these ones. I could probably try and sprinkle some pollen over here if I have time tonight, and I might get an ear onto some of these. But it looks like most of them are already past that point, and there's just deer tracks in here like crazy. This is that area where I put in some soybeans that didn't come up that good, just old seed. I was planning to have like a strip of soybeans here, and then a strip of brassica, and then my clover and alfalfa. So the brassicas in this plot are pretty slow to come up as well. But what I do like about this is there's no weeds coming. I mean, just a scattered one here or there. These brassicas have plenty of time to grow yet. These will be some pretty nice brassicas out here. They got plenty of room to grow, almost not thick enough, but no weeds hardly. So I'm gonna hit all this with the urea as well. And here's the alfalfa. We had some standing water here. You probably see on the last update. Killed off the alfalfa there, obviously. But this stuff is super picky. Like, I put down a ton of extra. I fertilized this half of the plot heavier than the corn half before we plowed it up with the 9-23-31. A lot of potassium and phosphorus. And this stuff is still showing like signs of stress. I don't know if it can't be nutrient deficiency. I mean, all these little ruts like this have had water in at some point this year. You go up this way a little bit. I probably should have put all the alfalfa on that side and continue to plow this up and put corn, soybeans, or brassicas in this half. But now that I got it all planted, it'll probably be here for at least a couple years, probably, into clover and alfalfa. You get a little bit up this side. There's never been any standing water here, and this stuff looks a little bit better, but it's still kind of got some of these yellowish leaves. Oh, here's a cottonwood tree coming up. But yeah, there's definitely lots of browse in here. They're eating on the weeds, they're eating on alfalfa. So yeah, right here, some nipped off alfalfa right there. I got some clover on this half of the plot too, like 25% clover or less. And then you can almost see where it gets darker. That's where it switches to pure clover. Can you kind of see the difference? Like the cutoffs right here. Pretty much right here. And there is just a ton of browse on this clover. Way more browse here than what there was right behind the house, because we're out here closer to where they're bedded. I'm sure there's a handful of deer bedded right back in here right now. Probably listen to me talk. But yeah, you cannot ask for a better clover stand year one. I mean, there's leaves missing everywhere in here. I knew this would be a great spot for clover on this property because there ain't an alfalfa field within a mile of this place or more. So these deer in this whole general area don't have a good perennial green food source like this. And there's soybeans across the road. And when all these soybeans in this whole neighborhood dry up, I mean, I'm gonna have green clover and green brassicas here for them. So it should be pretty good. And this is a perennial, obviously. So I mean, this is gonna just take minimal work. Just mow this once or twice a year, and I'll have a nice green food source here for them. Come the month of, second half of September and pretty much the whole month of October is when this clover is going to be really prime. And then they'll just switch right over to the brassica in November and December. And by that point, they'll be switched on to the corn. And that corn should last them all the way till probably late February, I'm hoping. It's not much, but like I said, we're in a pretty primarily ag area. It's only 20 acres here, about 10 acres of cover, 5 acres of good cover. So generally there's not a whole lot of deer in this area in the winter time. So this little bit of corn here, a little bit of soybeans and corn I have behind the house up there, that should last them till almost March, I'm hoping. So I'll take you over to that last little soybean and brassica plot just right on the other side, right next to that pond where the willows are. All right, we're at the final spot. This was that first year food plot. Brassicas in here look about the same. Definitely got a little better seed rate in here, it seems like. Some areas maybe a little thick, but these brassicas look like they're really going to turn out good. And then you get down into here, there's a low spot right here where they're clearly withstanding water. And there's still brassicas coming up in here. Just a little bit stressed. We're gonna be getting good rains tomorrow. This will all be flooded in some of these low spots, so hopefully it doesn't kill too many. And then this back section over here is beans. These beans had little to no browse the first month and a half. It seems like there's definitely more deer living in here now in the last couple weeks, because considering what my corn looks like out there, what the beans and corn look like in the backyard plots up there, these beans are hit pretty hard too, but they're still making pods. They're still gonna offer something for them in the wintertime. And I do got some scattered brassicas coming up in here. Last time I was out, looks like the rain pulled them, like puddled them into these low spots. So we got really thick spots, and then we got spots with nothing, and then we got spots with one or two that pushed a seed into that crack. So there's brassicas coming up in here, because these beans are definitely on the thin side, and they're never going to canopy over. They're planted late, they're thin, and now the deer are eating on them. So there'll be pods in here and brassicas. So I'm going to hit this whole side over here with some urea. I got a little bit extra, so this whole plot is going to get hit with urea tonight, and that should really help this plot. All these brassicas should fill in all these gaps. It's going to be a beautiful little secluded plot. They bed like right in there, right underneath that big tree over there, and beyond that a little bit. So definitely some thick spots. You can just thin them out like this. So that's about it for this food plot video. I know I had pretty much everything in this video. It's probably close to an hour. I just do these in detail updates kind of for myself too, for future years. I can just look back and look at what I had out here in 2024. Man, these mosquitoes are terrible. Every time it's above 80 degrees on this property, the mosquitoes are just crazy out here. Yeah, some of these plants are gonna be loaded out here. Look at all these flowers. So yeah, I'll have wintertime updates out here and on the family farm and in our backyard at home. So I'll have, you know, multiple more food plot videos to get out this year before hunting season. And then, like I said, wintertime updates of all these plots. So this winter will probably be the next time you see this plot and all the plots in this video. So yeah, thanks for watching.